Most people think a film is made when the cameras start rolling, but honestly, that's just when the work begins. Because if the files I have that are different versions of Like a Butterfly labeled 1.0, 2.0, final, final, the end, for money, I'd be rich. And different variations of that, for money, I'd be rich. So you shot the film. You went through production. You have the footage. And a movie is just the raw footage until post-production, where you put it all together. And that's what we're talking about today. Welcome to the studio sessions. My name is Brooke. And every week we talk about movies. Watching movies, what movies we love, making movies, and what the film industry is doing right now, because honestly, it's a lot. Before we jump into this week's topic, here are some studio notes. So, this week's studio notes is all CinemaCon 2026. This last week, everybody gathered for CinemaCon 2026, where the studios and the theaters give presentations and share what they're releasing soon, any updates on a theatrical experience, things like that. And it is all about films and theaters. It is a very insidery, but it can tell you a lot about what to expect, even as a moviegoer. So here is just a couple of big notes to take from CinemaCon 2026. The first one being major focus on theatrical experiences and technology. James Cameron pushed that filmmakers, studios should help fund theaters upgrading their projection systems and investing in that experience. And theatrical experiences was a big topic. In fact, the biggest thing in that arena that came out of CinemaCon 2026 was Disney announcing Infinity Vision, which is a technology that will rival IMAX. Laser projection, immersive sound systems, large format screens, all are what it's geared towards. And they want it to make the movie experience feel really big. So that was kicked off and announced, but also there was a lot of updates and new systems in the projection realm, whether you're looking at 4DX, 3D, immersive seating in surround environments, think XD seating, if you've been in that. And that was a major focus. And then you had release announcements. There were many. One of them that's getting major talk is Focker-in-Law, which is the third sequel to Meet the Parents. You had Meet the Parents, Meet the Fockers, now Focker-in-Law, with Ariana Grande coming in as the future daughter-in-law to Ben Stiller. And it looks really funny. And it got a release date in its official trailer. So they released a new trailer and it had the release date, which is Christmas of this year. So coming up very, very soon. It feels like time is flying, right? And then you had, of course, all of the talk about the new movies coming out that we already know about. Toy Story 5, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen gave a very nostalgic speech about how much the characters meant to them, things like that. Disney kind of nodded to their plans to keep rolling out Marvel, all of those Marvel, Star Wars, in their slate. And there is a pattern, especially with Disney's, but even if you look at Sony's, who has more Spider-Man movies planned, things like that, franchises are still the through line. But I do think we are seeing still more of a trend to harken back to the nostalgic, treasured comedies and romantic comedies of the past. Fokker in Law is another instance of that. We have Devil Wears Prada that's coming out very, very soon. And it's just another trend in that. And I'll say again, this is a good bridge. I like that approach to trying to get back to those. We bring people back and then we can get creative. Then new series can be started, new comedies can be made that have nothing connected to the past. And I think that's a good start. So, this is where everything ties into what people are watching. And that is some studio notes for you. I want to take just a second to thank everyone who has supported my film Like a Butterfly. As you guys know, films cost money to make. And I am so grateful at the support I've had through streaming the film, through the screenings that we did. It was incredible to get to talk to everybody afterward, have amazing conversations after getting to watch the film. And I enjoyed it more than I can put into words. And I'm so grateful for the support. As I am closing out Like a Butterfly, I am working to cover the costs of the last final amount for bringing the film to life. I have about $1,600 left to cover, and 210 of it has already been covered through streaming and the winter screenings. And that is an amazing start. And I'm so grateful for every person that helped contribute to that. If you have not seen the film, if you are wanting some way to support it, if you're looking to help support independent film or a film in general, and are hoping to be able to really partner with and make it possible for a film to exist, I would be so grateful to have you partner with me and help support Like a Butterfly. There are a lot of ways you can do that. Of course, just sharing about the film is more valuable than I can put into words. But also, if you have not seen the film yet, I would love to share it with you. I would love to have you experience it. It is on my website. I will put the link in the description box and on the screen. It is at www.butterflyentertainment.online/likeabutterfly. And if you're looking for just a way to give towards supporting this end cost of the film, I actually set up a support page on my website, www.butterflyentertainment.online/support. Again, I will put it on the screen and in the description box. Any way of supporting the film helps, and I am so grateful for. And if you watch the film, or you have watched the film, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you really love it. And let me know your thoughts. Now, back to the episode. So this week, we are talking post-production as a part of the How Films Are Made series. You developed the idea, we prepped all the plans, and we shot the footage. Now we have all of these files on a computer to sort through, to deal with, to actually mold into something. And something can look very, very different going from production to post-production when you look at editing, color grading, music. All of that can significantly impact the final outcome of the film in a way that could drastically change how the film looks and feels, depending on how you do those things. They are massive aspects to the final product, to a film being a film. I mean, you take the same shot, put different music over it, it feels very, very different. whether you put more dramatic music, lighter music, sadder music. It's so different. And color grading, the tone. If you want an example of this, think Twilight, the first one. Specifically, I'm thinking of. If you look at how that is color graded, the tone, the filter over the whole film, without that, it would feel very different. It would have a different tone. And those are all very important. And that's what we're talking about today. The edit, the finalization in post-production. So let's talk about what post-production actually is. You are, like I said, molding the footage into a film, but you are also shaping the story. You're structuring the story. You're putting certain scenes before and after each other, creating a narrative, creating a cohesive, in theory, hopefully, story from start to finish. You are deciding how this story will be told now. So you're structuring it. You are putting everything in place. You're also deciding what stays in and what doesn't. There's the term cutting room floor for a reason. Not everything you filmed in production will actually make it into the movie, whether it's repeated takes of a certain scene or whole scenes altogether that are just cut completely from the film, from the final product. That is very, very common. And that's all a part of shaping that story and the story that you're telling. And how you do that, one of the aspects of how you do that is the editing. You are deciding how these pieces are cut together, whether it's how you transition from one scene to another, whether it's choosing the best take out of all of them that you have, but looking at the performances in that take, looking for story continuity, emotional continuity, cohesive structure where they can actually follow and understand the story you're telling. And you're adding in different moments within editing of impact, whether that's a slow fade to black, whether that's jumping quickly, fast paced in an action scene, whether that's building tension in a scary scene. All of those things play a vital role, and all of that is done in editing. Now, you also have sound design, where you are designing the sound. That seems pretty simple, but there's a lot that goes with it. Within sound design, you have sound effects you can add, you have filters or transitions or clean up an audio that you can do to make it sound the best possible. You also have things like ambient sound you can add. I had some of this in Like a Butterfly. Foley, which is where you are making the effects of everyday things. So if I'm holding my coffee mug and I'm doing this, there could literally be someone doing Foley to get a clean audio for that doing this. It's all a part of that. And all of that is in sound design. And all of that can make or break somebody staying invested, holding somebody's attention, having that emotional impact, whatever emotional impact you're trying to have. And then on top of all of those things, there's music. Music is so important. Lack of music in certain sounds can be so important. And there is a difference in how you can add music in. There's different ways of doing that, whether you license certain songs, whether you have a composer write a score. And there can be a mixture of those things also. And again, sometimes silence can be more powerful. So making those decisions is all really important and done in post-production. Also, in the beginning stages of editing, there can be temporary tracks put in. I did this a little bit in Like a Butterfly, where I would put a song that sounded like what I was imagining. Maybe it wasn't perfectly what I'd choose, but was close enough. It kind of gives an idea. And then you come back to it later and finalize what you're going to put there. So for me, I was doing a lot of placeholders for the person I had writing some music for the film. I actually was really, really blessed to work with a composer that wrote a few pieces for the film, and I would send him sections with my temporary tracks from like, I want this emotional feel. This is the idea of what I'm going for. Obviously, this one is not the one I would choose. It doesn't have to be that, but something that gives enough of an idea that they can go, okay, I get what you're thinking. Let me try my hand at it. And that's so helpful. Then color grading. Color grading, again, the tone can make a huge difference for how the movie feels, but it also can help correct things because camera lenses and what they catch can differ so much depending on the environment you are in and the lens you use, camera settings, all of those types of things. Color grading can help correct things post production and make it so that you don't have things look off colored. They can bring it back to a more natural color if it's done correctly. Color correction, color grading, where you are bringing all of the colors to where they should be. And I actually use a color card where I will hold the color card up and then I edit in DaVinci Resolve. And I have the ability to go into DaVinci, tell it what color card I used, match the colors, and have it correct the coloring for me, which is so, so nice. So, yeah, that's one example, one way to kind of approach color grading. You can also choose color palettes when you're doing that. You can change different color tones to match a mood if you wanted to, things like that. You also want the footage to match. So you're not jumping from coloring to coloring so that it looks generally the same tone and color grading. Again, consistency. And then I also wanted to touch on the idea of fixing it in post because you hear that phrase a lot when talking about movies is specifically talking about the industry making movies, oh, fix it in post. Well, there's a lot you can fix in post, but there's also a lot you don't want to have to try. There are very talented people that are very good at fixing things in post, though. And this is the section they would come in at. They would come in, look over things, go, oh, we're going to have to fix that sound. So this person needs to come in and re-record the audio for this line. That's actually a thing you can do to fix something in post is if the audio of a dialogue doesn't sound right, you can re-record it to fix it. There is things like practical effects that you may have to adjust how they look or came out. Things like that. You can kind of smooth over any issues you might see in post. And this is where that would happen, where those issues would be addressed if there were any. Hopefully, there's not too much of relying on fixing it in post. But to be fair, there's a lot of technology right now that can help you do a whole lot. And there's some really talented people making amazing special effects and just visual changes and fixes that are incredible. And you would never know the difference. It's amazing what we can do to fix things in post. So I always think that's funny. Fix it in post used to be, I think, more of a thing because technology was farther behind. So that felt probably a little less usable than it does now. There's a lot more we can do now with technology to fix things in post than we probably, well, than I know we ever have before. And that's an amazing technology and opportunity. When it's used correctly, it can make some incredible films happen, some incredible scenes and effects. And yeah, just the magic of technology and filmmaking, the magic of editing. It's a beautiful thing. And honestly, it's a really fun part of the filmmaking process for me. I love editing creatively like that. And yeah, so it's really fun. And I'm always interested to learn more of what you can do and kind of see what can be done. And I do have a little bit of a story of post-production from Like a Butterfly. Post-production for Like a Butterfly was a massive part of making this film because I already had a lot of it shot through using a lot of my old YouTube content. And so I had specific interviews I was actually needing to record in production. And then when I went into post production, there was a lot of heavy lifting for sorting through old YouTube content, through structuring all of that within the edit and figuring out how I was going to put all of it in the edit, how I wanted to use those clips, how I wanted to weave all of these different elements together and tell the story. And structuring the story was a massive part of that for me because I had to figure out how to intertwine cohesively where it didn't feel like you were all over the place. My story being told throughout the whole film, but then also bring in an opportunity to share stories from other women. And that was a process for me. That was a long process of figuring out how I was going to do that and how I wanted to do that. I went through a few different iterations of trying different ways of structuring it, different ways of weaving them together. So it was a very long post-production. Also going through massive things with getting the music in and fixing certain old footage that just was old footage made with old technology, things like that. It was a big post-production for this. That was probably the longest part of the film, honestly, because there was so little to actually film new. And what I said in the intro of this episode, talking about different versions of the film saved in different files, not an exaggeration in any way. I literally have several different versions of the film saved where I was trying different things for different parts of it. And all of them, it's funny, you kind of just start getting creative with what you can call the different versions as you're going through it. And I think that's just a common process in creating the film when you're sharing it with others and trying to work on it. So yeah, that was my experience on Like a Butterfly in post-production. And I learned a lot through it. I learned a lot about story structure. I learned a lot about what you can make possible in post-production for old footage, old technology. And yeah, got even better at using some of the tools I have at my discretion for putting all of the footage together in a film. So that was really, it was fun. It was work, but it was fun. And yeah, that was a good time. So that is post-production. Those are the things that you're focused on. That is the process. And by the end of it, you have, in theory, a completed film. A film that you then have to figure out how to get in front of people. And that is distribution. That is what we will talk about next in the How Films Are Made series. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave me a comment. Let me know your favorite part. Let me know your experiences in post-production if you've made a film, or what part of post-production you think would be fun if you had the choice to try to help with one. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like. Make sure you subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. And share it with anyone and everyone that loves movies. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. The Studio Sessions is a Butterfly Entertainment production. You can keep up with all of our podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and other projects on our Instagram page. We are at Butterfly Entertainment Group. Thanks for listening.